So a lot of the time when you're making a YouTube video, you watch a thing, you immediately write a thing to then shoot a video about a thing, and then you post it. And that's kind of the end of the train of thought, right? But a lot of the time, I find at least that after, a couple more weeks, couple more months of sitting on whatever that idea is, I find that my opinion changes. Sometimes just a little bit, sometimes a lot. And that is something that I wish more creators talked about. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to talk about the last few videos that I've made over 2024, where my opinions have changed, where they have stayed the same, and other, I guess, relevant opinions that we can talk about as we go. My glasses are filthy. They always are. It's nothing new. All right, so let's go back to, I guess, the reboot era, September, October 2023, because that's when I started doing YouTube again and taking it seriously. And the 7 games, 7 days video, I actually don't have anything to change about my opinions on this one. I think I kind of hit the nail on the head with most of the games I was talking about. Hellbound, I think I was kind of fair on this one. It is retro in a lot of ways that are archaic and unfun rather than nostalgic. So, thumbs down on that front. Don't have an opinion to change on that one. Lego Star Wars 3, also just like not that great of a game when you compare it to the Skywalker Saga. On its own, perfectly fine. But yeah, going back and playing Lego Star Wars games as an adult, I'm not the target market, I know that. Shady Knight is actually out now, and I have not played it. I haven't been buying any games because my backlog is massive. Hence, doing Backlog Bust as a series. But I do really want to play it. I will pick it up at some point. I still think the demo was exceptional, and you should play the full game. Or if the demo's still up, play the demo, and you can get a feel for it. The Ultra Kill section, I actually feel like is probably one of the weakest parts of the video. I don't think I really sold it that well. I didn't mix it with the dating metaphor that well. Though the whole dating metaphor thing in that video was fucking weird, and like I even say that at the end of the video. I'm like, I'm not doing this shit again. Whatever, we try new things. Cool, then going over to Scott Pilgrim Isn't an Asshole. Also one that I stand by. I think the film does really soften a lot of Scott's more abrasive traits that are in the comics that make his development make more sense versus in the movie, not great. I think overall that video is still really good. Next Scott Pilgrim video, I regret doing 3, honestly. But anyway, comparing it to The Last Jedi, I think is actually pretty valid. Obviously, I had framed it in a way that was interesting, controversial, whichever way you want to put it. But I think the subversion part of it makes sense, and I still really like Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. I'm very glad it didn't get renewed for a second season, because what was the point? I know a lot of people are bummed about it, but I don't see why we would want a second season of it. It, to me at least, it told the story it set out to tell, and I don't want to ask more of a series. Like, there are so many series that have run on for far too long, and they've kind of gone off the rails because they've lost the plot. They've gone so far beyond the original intention of the story that now it's just filler episode after filler episode, and just, what's the point? Why are we still here? Just to suffer? Yeah, no. So I'm very glad that I didn't get a second season, as much as that might be a negative way to look at things of like, yeah, it didn't get renewed, but I think there are plenty of pieces of art out there that run their exact course. They did exactly what they want to do, and they move on to the next thing. More pieces of art, pieces of media should do that. Scott Pilgrim vs. the Studios was a bit of a filler video. In January, I was still working on the video I had originally meant to post in December, and I hadn't got it done yet. That's the AI video that's up next. And so I just wanted to throw something together. And I was seeing a lot in the comments of like people being like, was the marketing lied to us? It promised an authentic return to Scott Pilgrim, an authentic adaptation of the original comics. And I would say if you watch the first teaser, that seems like a reasonable assumption. But if you watch any of the rest, if you've read any of the interviews, even just read the headlines that most of the interviews were posted with, it's pretty clear that it's not the same thing. And I think the plot twist at the end of the first episode, where it is very much beat for beat the original comic, I think that makes it work really well. I think that's one thing that I would actually recommend to a lot of people to do more often, is to go into media blind. I think, honestly, it makes things much more enjoyable. That's not to say that, like, you know, you can't have expectations, especially when it comes to franchises. But for me, even if it is a franchise, I try to go in with as few preconceived ideas as to what it's going to be, so that I can embrace it and then also analyze it for what it is, not what I wanted it to be, what I didn't want it to be, just what is actually on the screen. And sometimes that's hard to do, but I think in this case, it's the right thing to do. Has AI already ruined the internet? Well, if it hadn't already ruined the internet when I posted this video, which was February of this year, it sure fucking has since then. AI shit has gone into overdrive. I think it has become even more damaging than I paint it as in the video. And that's scary, because I thought I was being pretty pessimistic in the video. I think my view on how negative AI was not necessarily unrealistic. I think it has been already used to cause a lot of damage, but it got worse than I expected. Thankfully, okay, there's some positive stuff, right? There have been much more investigations, I guess, from various governments across the world that are really trying to tear apart both the general AI bullshit in terms of copyright, spreading misinformation, shit like that, but also a big attempt at deconstructing big tech, which I have mixed feelings about. But that's late stage capitalism, baby. It's pretty bad. I try not to think about it too much. Problematic faves ruining cinema. I don't have any opinions to change on this one. I do think that the concept of problematic and people being very confused as to, like, this is a character on screen, and just because we are representing a certain action or belief on screen does not mean that the writer, director, whoever, studio is endorsing that belief. And I can't believe this is a conversation that we have to have with people. Of it is fiction, and yes, there can be fiction that is damaging, but oh my god, I'm trying to think of like one of the there's been so many examples this year. Andor is peak Star Wars. I still agree with this. I'm very excited for the second season, which is not too far away. April next year. Okay, it's a little, that feels really far away at the moment, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not that far away. I'm very excited for that. I am glad everything that I've heard Tony Gilroy say so far is very much the success of the first season of Andor has meant that Disney has kind of been like, yeah, man, do your thing. I do have changes on my opinion about the Acolyte, which I posted on the second channel, but we'll come back to that in a second. Star Wars is not woke yet. I still agree with everything that I said in this video. It's a belief I've held for a long time, especially like the Disney era of Star Wars. I would say, honestly, the prequel trilogy is more woke than any of the Disney era stuff. Woke is just a cultural word that doesn't mean anything. And there are plenty of things to criticize about Disney's media, including very token representation that does dilute storytelling, because they make these characters that have a single trait rather than, you know, writing fully fleshed characters. But having a queer or minority character is not the problem. Fuck you if you disagree. I do not care. I don't want to hear it in my comments. Fuck you. I had to deal with my dad saying wokeism unironically the other day. Okay, I'm still pissed about it. Other Star Wars video this year that's on the second channel was defending, I don't know if defending is the right word, deconstructing criticism of The Acolyte. While I didn't think it was amazing, I didn't think it was peak cinema, I was like, hey, this is pretty good. And the comments did not like that. Now I wrote this literally after I finished the last episode of it, and I think fresh in my mind, I was like, cool, there's definitely a lot of things I didn't like about it, but overall, it's pretty solid. I think the issue is I've watched a lot of bad stuff this year with the intent to criticize it and then not end up making a video about it because I was like, I actually can't be asked, and that's not what I want to put out into the world. I do think I defended a little too much. I do agree with some of the sentiment in the comments of like, there's some very glaring flaws, which, to be fair, a good chunk of that I do mention in the video of like, I don't think it's perfect, but I think it's decent. I stand by saying that it's, you know, better than season 3 of The Mandalorian. I haven't watched season 4. Definitely better than a lot of Disney stuff that I've watched. So on that front, yeah, it's not bad, but it's not good. And I think I gave it too much praise when I put this video out. I do hate that my camera, when it hits the time limit for recording, makes a very loud beep. But when it runs out of space on wherever I put the memory card, it doesn't say shit. So I don't know how much I missed. I'm not re-recording it. Much in the same vein of my feelings about the Acolyte changing, my feelings about Alien Romulus have not held. I do think I had a pretty well-balanced criticism of it when I first posted this video, but I think it was maybe a little too well-balanced, and upon rewatching, which I did a couple of weeks ago, it's not great. I think it's one of the weaker Alien movies. I'm not a massive fan of it. I think it is very much softened from the rest of the franchise. It's a bit more action romp, a lot more action romp, and a lot of it less horror. I don't think that the overall plot is very good. I was very vocal about this, but I'm trying to remember his fucking name, but the guy that plays Ash and is also in Lord of the Rings, that deepfake monstrosity I was critical of in my original video. I am even more critical of it now after watching it on my TV rather than the theater. Somehow it looks worse on my TV. I got a knockdown. I don't know if I gave it a score, but I think I probably would have given it like a 7 out of 10 when I watched it, and I think it's probably closer to a 5. Going back to the main channel, my video about Fleabag and the perfect fourth wall break, my opinions of it have not changed. I still think Fleabag is one of the probably best pieces of media I have ever watched. I do think the first season is stronger than the second, but the second's still pretty damn good. I just think my video of it's not great. I don't think I sell people on it very well, hence it not performing very well. I think it's the worst performer of the year. I was very stressed shooting that. If you go over to the main channel, if you remember, there's a behind the scenes thing where I talk about how stressful that shoot was. It's the first time that I had other people with me for a shoot. I'd rented out a theater to shoot in, and yeah, I was forgetting my lines. I hadn't bought a teleprompter at this point. Not that it's on my camera right now, but yeah, it was not great. But I think the failures of that shoot were what pushed me to buy a teleprompter. It was a learning experience. What I said in the video, I stand by though. Can AI actually replace writers? This is another one that, like I said with the earlier AI video, AI has actually become more damaging than I had thought, and this was only 4 months ago. I think it's very rapidly accelerated in terms of how much it's being used and how damaging it is. I think my opinion is objectively correct. AI is horrific for the world, both in terms of the environmental impact and also for what it is doing to people, in the same way that I think short form content is rotting people's brains. People fucking writing emails with ChatGPT because they can't be asked to write it themselves. is similarly rotting away at people's brains. I don't like saying that someone's a waste of oxygen, but with the amount of trees you're burning by asking ChatGPT to write a 3-sentence business email, you are actually wasting oxygen. Cool, the big one, this year's banger, the ultimate alien design. I stand by it. I definitely exaggerate points in the video for, I don't know, I wouldn't say, there's some stuff for comedic effect, but other parts of it are more for trying to sell my point. There are things that I exaggerate, or not necessarily exaggerate, but probably emphasize more than other points that would counteract it, because I got a video to make. And people do point that out in the comments of like, it's not the best alien design of all time. People point out better examples like The Thing. I agree. I think The Thing is a much better, or not necessarily better, but much more unique alien design in terms of the concept, but the execution is not necessarily. Like, there's a lot of body horror elements that we've seen from a lot of other films around that time that, like, you see where the inspiration comes from. Anyway, I stand with my opinion that it is a very unique alien design. It's not the ultimate alien design. Like, brother, it's YouTube. It's a title and a thumbnail. Leave me alone. Alright, talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. Yeah, my opinion's kind of the same. I think if anything, it's maybe softened a little bit. I feel like I'm slightly less critical of it now, but that's because I don't care. More so than my opinion being like, oh, maybe that was too harsh. Which in some videos I've definitely been too harsh about things I've criticized. Like my video on North from forever ago. And sometimes it's unfair. No, I think all of my criticisms of Deadpool and Wolverine are very fair. And people in the comments being like, it's a switch your brain off movie, it's a popcorn movie, shut the fuck up. You can still have a well-crafted popcorn movie. Just because you want to switch your brain off for a movie does not excuse bad writing. You can still write good. You can still shoot good. There's a lot of VFX in there that, yeah, you know, a lot of the typical Disney issues. And I think that's the big thing of a lot of people are fine with the typical Disney issues because that is the standard that the general audiences as a whole have been trained to, in a way. So I stand by my opinion, but I kind of get where people are coming from. I don't agree, but I understand. That's something I wish people would say more. It's something I say a lot, that I don't agree with what someone is saying, but I understand their train of thought. I understand why they would feel that way, but I don't agree with, like, I see the information, but I don't agree with the conclusion. And the ultimate first-person movie tier list. Most of these movies I had watched before at least once or twice, so I kind of already had an established opinion on them. For the most part, I think probably the only one that I am maybe too kind on is the Doom one. I think that one's maybe getting a little bit too much praise, but I think that's a little bit of the contrarian spin of like Doom is notoriously a horrifically bad movie, and trying to find something positive in it is very on brand for me. I think it's a good way to put it. And then The Aquatic Abyss is not really an opinion piece, so I'm not going to talk about my opinion changing because it hasn't. It's a personal creative writing piece more than anything. So if you haven't watched that, please go watch it. It is slowly getting there. It was sitting at like 700 for a while, and I was like, fuck man, I put so much effort into this. I was on a motherfucking boat. Anyway, thank you for watching. Let me know if you think some of my opinions are stupid, or if I shouldn't have changed some of my opinions. I think it's good to have that level of transparency of, you know, when you're exposed to new information, does that change how you feel about something? Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes that piece of new information isn't enough. And sometimes it's just retrospective, of being able to look back at something after a while of consuming other pieces of media and then being like, oh yeah, okay, now that I've watched more of, you know, X related thing, maybe I was too kind on it or too harsh on it, whatever. I will see you all in 2025. I want to be posting on the second channel more, so more rambly videos like this. Hopefully without my camera running out of fucking the memory.